In An African Odyssey, we see that life's a pilgrimage, no matter what your star. As we follow a hopeful protagonist through life's trials and tribulations, negotiating the challenges, mysteries, and victories of the African life. The old river in its broad reach rested unruffled at the decline of day, after ages of good service done to the race that peopled its banks, spread out in the tranquil dignity of a waterway leading to the uttermost ends of the earth. No, our African Odyssey does not begin on the mysterious Congo of Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness, nor even on the dark continent itself, as the British explorer Henry Stanley once dubbed the whole of Africa. No, for even Conrad knew in the middle of the colonial enterprise just what the end game was. The conquest of the earth, which mostly means the taking it away from those who have a different complexion or slightly flatter noses than ourselves, is not a pretty thing when you look into it too much. Although we will revisit the colonial legacy, our African Odyssey, likewise, does not begin on the vast plains of East Africa or the hills and highlands of British East Africa, also known as Kenya, where Karen Blixen, aka Isak Dinesen, penned Out of Africa. Up in this air, you breathed easily, drawing in a vital assurance and lightness of heart. In the highlands, you woke up in the morning and thought, here I am, where I ought to be. No, we are not there yet, though we'll get there eventually. For of all the experiences a human can have, surely the experience of watching the migration of a million wildebeest on the Serengeti, or observing a herd of elephants protecting their young from lions at the base of Kilimanjaro. These are exalted experiences. Africa abounds in people and places of fear and dread and intoxicating allure. As Blixen discovered, when you have caught the rhythm of Africa, you find out that it is the same in all her music. No, our African Odyssey begins rather in the late 1980s at a world-renowned primate center in North Carolina, where a primatologist has just discovered a new species of lemur in the Madagascar rainforest, which will lead to the establishment of a new national park for lemur conservation. But the primatologist needs help with a new approach to conservation, in which the development needs of the rural population surrounding the new Rana-Mafana National Park would also be addressed through agriculture, forestry, and other natural resource management interventions. Meanwhile, our protagonist, a doctoral student in natural resources management at a nearby university, seizes an opportunity to provide technical assistance to rural development in the periphery, and begins to prepare herself for this new adventure. Back in Africa, offshore as it were, adrift in the Indian Ocean on the world's 4th largest island. Fast forward a couple of years, and our protagonist is conducting her agricultural anthropological studies. And she is in hook, line, and sinker, having learned the local Malagasy language while living in a tent in villages for extended periods of time, suffering infections from leech bites, boils the size and shape of Mount Vesuvius, and repeatedly contracting malaria. But she loves this life, and she comes to love the Malagasy, the people of Madagascar. And they have come to love her back, as they've benefited from her actions, acting as a barefoot doctor where there were none, translating agricultural expertise into practical solutions for subsistence farmers. They respect the fact that she is one of the few foreign experts who has committed to learning their language while experiencing their threadbare existence with them in their villages and fields. Fast forward once again a couple of years, and our protagonist has returned to the USA to finish her doctoral thesis, describing and explaining these remote, exotic villagers in their own language from shared experiences. She is going through a bout of reverse culture shock, where the norms and values back home in the land of milk and honey, the land of plenty, seem remote and too far from the bone. And she pines for the simple life of few possessions and immediate concerns. As she reminisces, she recalls a phrase oft used by the Malagasy in so many situations. Iowe, Iowe Malagasy. The meaning and emotion behind this phrase is similar to the Navy SEALs phrase, embrace the suck, or lean into the suffering and get comfortable being very uncomfortable. She felt like the phrase summed up a stoic acceptance of life's vicissitudes by some of the poorest on the planet in material regard, yet some of the richest in spirit and resilience. Iowe Malagasy, Iowe.
Malagasy on your island adrift at sea. Highway Malagasy, won't you come and rescue me? For I have seen your people dancing long into the night. I have shared your roof and floor, fire shining bright. But now I miss your skin so dark, your smile full of light. I want to climb your deep green mountains where the spirits take to flight. Iowe Malagasy, will they ever let you be? Iowe Malagasy, all you want is to be free. I still remember your quiet voice, your laughter of delight, how you showed me to be brave, no matter what fright. Do you remember I tried to help alleviate your plight? But in the end, I still don't know if I was wrong or right. Oh, your life beneath the trees. I weigh Malagasy is the hope for you and me. You let me in to feel your pain. You shared with me your sight. With you I sank to my deepest low and scaled my highest height. You taught me how to flow with life without putting up a fight. How the weakest of the earth can overcome the might. I weigh Malagasy, I weigh Malagasy, I weigh Malagasy.
The late, great American biologist, naturalist, and writer E.O. Wilson once wrote, "The time has come to link ecology to economic and human development. When you have seen one ant, one bird, one tree, you have not seen them all. What is happening to the rainforests of Madagascar will affect us all." And so, nearly 2 decades after leaving Madagascar, our protagonist was still in the game. By now having worked as an international agricultural scientist on every continent except Antarctica. Yet that economic and human development need, alluded to by Wilson, was now greater and more urgent than ever. After years of working in Asia, she accepts an assignment in East Africa to work on cassava. What is cassava, you may well ask? Cassava roots, the source of the more familiar tapioca, is one of the most important subsistence food crops in the world. The normally dependable staple crop, particularly for poor smallholder farmers, had been compromised by the combined effects of 2 invasive exotic diseases. Our protagonist is appointed director of this project, based in Nairobi, Kenya. I told you we'd get there eventually. Here she was at last, her office not far from the elephant orphanage in the suburb known as Karen, named after Miss Karen Blixen, and just a day's drive from the aforementioned Serengeti Plains and the towering Mount Kilimanjaro. And so she settles once again into the rhythm of life and work in Africa. In Uganda, her work takes her near the mountain gorillas in the mist, as it were. In Rwanda, there is little to remind our protagonist of the once dreadful genocide more than a decade earlier. But perhaps Conrad's fabled Congo draws her more deeply into the mystique of Africa than any other place or people. Yet the colonial enterprise is still underway here, with foreign firms vying for precious metals and stones, and local villagers caught between the rock and the hard place of rebels and reactionary governments. Back in Nairobi, she and her guard, Aduda, together recreate a rural environment in this urban setting, planting and tending an extensive garden and acquiring some local egg-laying chickens. In order to keep the chickens fed and fat, they create an earthworm farm. But the chickens grow so fat on earthworms, they're unable to lay eggs. Moreover, unlike modern industrial breeds of fowl, these local chickens seem to require a rooster in order to produce eggs. And so one day, the pair acquire Freddie the rooster. Freddie soon makes his presence known, usurping the throne of the early bird gets the worm, and effectively stealing the thunder of the myriad native African birds of dawn.
Somewhere in the dark of night, rooster crows before daylight. Others wait until the dawn. Rooster crows for far too long. Choir won't sing till the curtains draw. Without sunlight, the birds won't call. At first just one, then two, then three. Before too long, the symphony. Altos, tenors, sopranos thrill. Booming bass, piercing trill. Left and right and all around. The airways fill with nature's sound. The orchestra plays about an hour. Shorter still in morning shower. When at last the sun appears, the birds of dawn all disappear. Surely there's some hidden lesson if our hearts will only listen. The pied crow swoops low to the ground. sound in the African dawn. All the while the rooster crows, his motivation no one knows.
Surely there's some hidden lesson, if our hearts will only listen, goes the song. Indeed, what lessons has our protagonist learned on this long, strange trip, this African Odyssey, spanning time and space? One thing is certain, as Blixen noted 100 years earlier. When you have caught the rhythm of Africa, you find out that it is the same in all her music. Africa is called the cradle of humankind because human life originated here, with the fossil record stretching back some 3 million years or more. But its human population is the poorest on the planet, despite being resource-rich, and it is this pot of gold that attracts the rest of the world. Yet, despite what should be a bright future for all inhabitants on the African continent, it has a history of poor central governance and a plethora of despots and dictators from north to south. Although its 54 nations are now all independent states, the continent as a whole still faces extreme poverty, ill health and hunger, poor education and low literacy, slow rates of economic growth, and the level of domestic and political violence that puts a damper on life as a whole. She reflects on the people and places she has come to know. She remembers the Malagasy, her first African friends, like the village chieftain, Zafi Romain, whom she helped get medical treatment for the elephantiasis that had plagued much of his adult life. She recalls the time she distributed cassava to Barack Obama's grandmother in Kenya. She remembers Faith, the young Kenyan, who had been a child bride at the age of 8, and how she was able to offer her employment and help alleviate her life in Nairobi's slums. She recalls those amputees and other victims of uncivil war fueled by blood diamonds in Sierra Leone. Like Ismail Bea, who wrote down his tormented life as a former child soldier in his book, A Long Way Gone, as therapy to escape the horrors of his nightmares. And yet, these former child soldiers and child brides are the future of Africa, and this excites our protagonist. For she has come to know that the direction and change writing Africa's future will come from within, not from the likes of Conrad or Blixen, nor indeed from the likes of future waves of well-meaning professionals like herself. Africa, so old, so young, your people stand together while your song's being sung. The whole world stands together while your song is sung.
Africa, so old, so young, your past is still present, your future's begun. Africa, so young, so old, the whole world wants a piece of your pot of gold. Africa, Africa, so old, so young, your people all dance in the midday sun. Africa, so young, so old, the whole world waits for you to enter the fold. Africa, Africa, so old, so young, your battles still rage while your war's never won. Africa, so young, so old, the whole world rushes in, so your story is told. Africa, Africa, so old, so young, the colonials rule by pointing a gun. Africa, so young, so old, the whole world forgets you were once bought and sold. Africa, 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 so old, so young, your children go to school, but there's still work to be done. Africa, so young, so old, the whole world moves ahead while you're left in the cold. Africa, Africa, so old, so young, your husband's into voodoo while your wife is a nun. Africa, so young, so old, the whole world points a finger at you as they scold. Africa, Africa, so old, so young, your palaces stand next to houses of dung. Africa, so young, so old, the whole world pays ransom while your thieves are paroled. Africa, Africa, so old, so young, your politicians lie till the cat gets their tongue. Africa, so young, so old, the whole world agrees you're a sight to behold. Africa, 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 so old, so young, your people stand together while your song's being sung. The whole world stands together while your song is sung. Africa, the whole world stands together while your song is sung. Africa, the whole world stands together while your song is sung. Africa, the whole world stands together while your song is sung. Africa.